Hey guys, so I survived my very first Twitter lockout, and I was not that upset about it because in reality it proved my point. So just very quickly to recap, yesterday I sent out two tweets. They were verbatim what Sarah Jeong of the New York Times had tweeted out, except instead of saying it about white people, I chose to say it about Jewish people and black people. So I tweeted out, Black people should live underground. I love being mean to old black women. And I tweeted out, do Jewish people burn quickly under the sun? Whatever she tweeted about burning under the sun. And that hashtag cancel Jewish people. She tweeted out hashtag cancel white people, and my account was locked out. And I was basically told that it was because I was inciting hate, which is against Twitter's policies, which should be against Twitter's policies. On the surface, I actually agree with Twitter's assessment. I believe that what I tweeted was wrong. You should not be able to tweet about any race or any group that you want them canceled, that they should live underground, and that you enjoy harassing them. I mean, obviously that's wrong. And that is the point in all of this. We should not be allowed to be racist towards any group. I obviously understood that it changes the context. For some reason, we believe in this country that racism is totally fine when it's geared towards white people, and that is incredibly wrong and something that I've been a very vocal critic about. Growing up in a household with my grandfather, and he was somebody that grew up with the real KKK, and they'd come by at night on horseback and shoot into their home when he was growing up. He grew up where people were actually being lynched. So learning the stories of my grandfather's childhood has always made me someone that always wanted to defend any group against racism. I don't know why suddenly people think that white people are excluded from that scenario, that people can't be racist towards white people when in fact they often are. The problem with the New York Times essentially sanctioning her behavior is that they are signaling to the rest of the world that racism actually is okay as long as you pick the right race. And obviously within white people, I don't know exactly, there are so many different groups, and the history of the United States teaches us that white people were discriminated against all the time. The problem is that Black people, Asian people, and other minority groups like to think that we were the only ones that were discriminated against, and that's just false. In fact, in the early 20th century, the most well-read book was The Passing of the Great Race. It was by Madison Grant, and we actually put a stop on all immigration coming into America because there was this fear that we were losing the race, the pure white race, which was considered Anglo-Saxon or Nordic. Those were the white people that were celebrated in this country. And this was the entire theory upon which eugenics actually came from, purifying the white race. At that time, they were concerned because Germans were coming into this country, because people from South Europe were coming into this country, Italians, and they viewed these people as dumb. Quite literally, they viewed these people as dumb. Irish people, when they first came into this country, were discriminated against entirely, mostly because they brought famine and disease with them, so people wanted to separate themselves. So you've got Irish people that have been discriminated against in this country. You've got Italians that have been discriminated against in this country. You've got Germans who were considered absolute morons in this country, in so much that we wanted to stop having immigration, period, in this country, because we hated different sects of what today is just all goes under the realm of white, right? And that is actually false. When you say cancel white people, it's racist. When you talk about the history of racism in this country, it is not just Black people that have been treated indiscriminately in this country. It's been a bunch of different groups as they came in. What was considered white in the 1920s, again, to state my point, was just the Nordic and Anglo-Saxons. So Hitler used to carry that book around, The Passing of the Great Race. It was eventually translated into German and into French, and it became one of the most well-read books, and Hitler used to call it his Bible. That's where things grew pretty problematic, is that they believed in the purification of the race. It's what Margaret Sanger, when she came up with Planned Parenthood, there was a real fear in the early 20th century that we were going to lose the purity of the Anglo-Saxon race in this country. And it wasn't because of Black people. We had already been here. It was because of other immigrant communities that were coming in. So all of this to say that the majority of people in this country don't even know world history. They like to think that because you are a certain skin complexion, it means that nobody ever treated you wrong, or that you didn't face discrimination in this country, and that is patently false. It is false. And if people start to believe that the oppressed are allowed to become the oppressors, then we're going to be facing a real problem. And I think we are facing a real problem in this country. I think that the racism that I see every day towards white people is absurd. And what I always do is I say, what if I was reading this about Black people? How would it make me feel? I feel that it's important that I always use my voice and my platform to defend any group that is being treated that way. We know, especially white conservatives, and double especially Black conservatives. Every day on my Twitter feed, I am called a coon. I'm called a house N-word. I'm not going to say it in case I get locked out again. I am called, saying that I'm a porch monkey. I get called that all the time on Twitter. Nobody's accounts ever get banned. I don't call for the accounts to get banned because, I do believe in the First Amendment, and those attacks don't affect me. But when you start deciding, what groups are allowed to be called those names, when you're allowed to be racist to Black conservatives, when you're allowed to be racist towards anybody that has a white complexion, it's problematic. The New York Times should release Sarah Jeong, primarily because she's not fit to do her job. The job of a reporter is to not be biased. Her entire Twitter feed, dating back to 2013, lets you know that she is biased, that she harbors a real hate for white people in this country. She's not going to be able to do her job without bias. And it's ridiculous that they lied for her, that they came out, and that a publication like the New York Times, which was once considered, not anymore, it's now the failing New York Times, but was once considered very respectable, is standing on the grounds of racism right now, that they're defending her, and they've decided because she's a darker complexion, she's somehow allowed to be volatile and racist. It's not okay. It's the job of everybody, no matter what color you are. We are all Americans. And when we see any group that is being treated that way, we have to use our voices to speak up. So I'm glad that Twitter locked me out, because it really allows us to think about this more, and to think about what in their algorithms makes them think that that tweet is wrong when you use the word Jewish and Black, but it's okay when you use the word white. Thank you guys so much, everyone that raised the firestorm on Twitter. I didn't even contest the ban, and I saw so many patriots that just stood up and spoke out for me. I'm blessed to know you all, and there is some power in knowing that when we band together, we can get things done. Bye, guys.